The other thing is with evidence.com, they're like behind, the company seems to be behind the times with how they have like the video display and stuff. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I have to actually get on my home computer, like a home personal computer, to get on to see the videos.
Yeah.
So I thought, and do they not know that that's out of date? Nobody uses that program anymore.
So I have to go find, I haven't been on SharePoint on this computer, so now I have to go back and
load it.
redo, try and...
I got it done by 10:30 last night. I figured out where everything was.
I had problems with evidence. I was telling evidence.com. Really?
No. I did not. But I had seen the videos before. I watched the videos before. I just hadn't seen the written part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to see all the written part last night. But I did get on evidence.com last night just because I forgot that I'd seen all the videos. So it's all good.
And then it was too late to call anybody, so I...
What time was it?
It was like
to call me.
yeah, right.
I might be drowsy.
Yeah.
He was looking for somebody that could provide him some assistance.
Yeah,
that's
right.
true. That is true.
Not a bad moral support. You know,
I feel your pain.
Yeah. So, are we ready to roll?
We are.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. This is a Case Review Subcommittee, Tuesday, May 16th. Welcome, everyone. We'll get approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Approval of the minutes. I approved those minutes because I use them as my presentation, so I make a motion that we approve them.
And I second. And we vote.
Yes?
Yes.
All in favor? Keep forgetting that. Okay, let's begin with public comments. Jim, first on our list.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to acknowledge that given the parachute by the DOJ, looks like you guys are in command of the aircraft if we're going to have any kind of meaningful civilian police oversight. So I applaud that. I wanted to start out first by just saying that I looked at the minutes of the last meeting and then I contrasted it with the upcoming agenda, and I think, Chairman Fine, you asked Mark Baker to write a letter to the chief to clear up what was expected from everybody. I didn't see that on the agenda, and so I don't know how, as a citizen, we would be able to find that letter and see if there was a response. And then the members discussed the POB will consider changing the findings letter to include the CPOA's recommendations for discipline in case review subcommittee report. I didn't see that on the agenda either, so I don't know
I thought we voted to change it, and in fact, you'll see today that it was changed.
Okay, well, I didn't, that wasn't in the minutes.
Oh, okay.
Which minutes are you talking about?
The April 13th, 2017 board minutes. The board minutes.
I'm sorry, which date?
April 13th. I could have missed it, right? But I didn't see that it was approved.
That there was a motion. There was no motion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I believe we voted on it.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't see it in the minutes, so maybe I'm not reading good. So that's great. That'll help me on some of the things I want to follow up with. And then the last thing is Director Harness discussed the CPOA's rebuttal to the chief's non-concurrence letter. And I was just curious, does that mean that we wrote a letter to the chief about the non-concurrence? Okay, then that leads me into my brief presentation. I'll do it as quickly as I can, and then you just shut me up when I'm out of time. I sent you all an email, and I highlighted my concerns with CPO, or CPC 139-16. I think it's important now, especially given the fact that you guys are going to be flying on the airplane, that there are some solid information that's supporting you. And in this particular investigation, I believe that there's some major issues. And I even drafted a draft letter that I thought I would give to you guys if you could write to the chief saying what's up. But basically, you know, the chief said in his response that the investigator reached, he couldn't see where the investigator reached a score of 25 on the matrix, right? And then CPOA said, based upon the risk assessment, the score these subjects would have received by policy required a specialized unit. But it doesn't have anything in there that says, how did we arrive at that conclusion? There's no...
How did we CPOA?
Yeah, how did we do that? And so I put a little chart together.
Oh, keep coming.
So, yeah. I put a chart together, and I came up with a score, trying to be conservative, of 57. And I thought that that would be a good thing to send to the chief and say, this is the way we looked at this. Now, the way I got to the 57 included some information that I got from Jeff Proctor's report that he wrote on this whole case on July 14th of 2016, because there wasn't a lot of information in the CPOA report that said what this guy's criminal history was. He had a warrant outstanding and he had a gun, and so, but it turns out he was an armed robber with prior armed robbery convictions and things like that. So I think that that's something that was missing, and it gave the chief an out to say, well, I didn't see that.
It was a part of the presentation at the POB meeting, and I walked through the matrix to the board and explained how we got to 65.
Okay, well, we were close.
Yeah.
But my point then is not so much that the board knew about it, but that it's not in the documentation that was sent to the chief.
There is no documentation to be sent to the chief. Yeah. I mean, he has the final say. The only thing that we did was we presented a rebuttal to his non-concurrence, which we posted as a part of the minutes that will be accepted into the minutes and posted
at this meeting.
At this next meeting.
Right.
Well, I think that I'm not making myself clear.
Okay.
When we send a letter to the chief and we're saying that our conclusion is that they should have used the matrix, then we ought to provide some evidence of what that is, rather than wait for him to reply that he doesn't concur, and then we say, well, this is why we thought that. I don't know if that's being clear or not, but I didn't see any support for that decision or that conclusion in the CPOA report. It may have been well articulated, and I had to leave the meeting early, Ed, because I have no idea of what was said, but I have confidence that he would explain exactly why that was. Also, the sergeant stated that the matrix was generally inadequate for arrest warrants, and since that's such a big deal in terms of officer safety, use of force, and all of that, I thought there should be a comment. And I'm not just here just to criticize this report. I think it's important that these reports really demand a response from the chief, and if he doesn't respond, then I don't know how we can just sit back and let him not respond. He doesn't even talk about the finding about Detective I for the violation of SOP, and the personnel will treat the public with respect, where he said, that's right, zip your mouth or we'll shoot you again, basically something like that. And then there's no other evidence that the chief provided to the complainant with any similar explanation. He didn't discuss any of the recommendations that you all made, not a one of the two. I don't think that the POB has clarified the intent. That the process in the statute says that you have to send a letter to him and to the city council on recommendations for policy changes. It's not clear, or it seems clear, that he doesn't think he has to respond to recommendations for policy changes in your statute. So you'll see in this draft that was presumptuous enough to send is that it suggests that either he starts responding to those, or you'll have to resort to them following the statute or the ordinance and take every policy recommendation to the city council that he then has to respond to them to. The big issue to me is the the first recommendation, or the second recommendation, was basically that they get together and they try to not have these things where they communicate with needle exchange kinds of people, and that seems pretty basic, but he didn't even respond to that. The more complicated one was the recommendation that it says in the report, that an associated recommendation included with the report to determine if APD policy restricts the definition of show of force. And in fact, if the settlement agreement intended a situation like that report to be documented and investigated as a reportable show of force. Basically, the question is the need to acquire a target rather than just pointing a firearm at a person. But then the reference photo in the letter to the civilian complainant creates more confusion than clarification, and is particularly significant since in the monitor's fourth report, he says the concepts of low ready and high low ready positioning of a weapon and acquiring a sight picture all appear to confuse a relatively simple concept. They go on and talk further about how one of the big things to keep them out of compliance is the show of force. And there appear to be multiple definitions of the use of force in the training process according to the monitor's fifth report. And they also then reiterate there's a lack of clear definitions of show of force, and then the concepts of low ready and high low ready positioning of the weapon appear to confuse a relative. They said the same thing again. Well, you know, in my view, that the picture that shows the low ready purports to show a low ready. I showed that when I was going to the police academy to the instructors out there, and they all said, no, that's not low ready. Low ready is down at the ground. Now, you can get some confusion there with rifles and things. Low ready should still be at the ground, but there are many different, low ready in the military is kind of pointed at you, but not high pointed at you. So anyway, I just think that this whole issue that was raised in here is serious enough that the monitor keeps talking about it, and then we confuse it. We don't clarify it. And then we don't even make him answer that. So I think that's a big concern of mine. And then the one thing I did find in there, that there was a study that was done, and I'm not going to pay $50 to just read the small study. I didn't get a chance to go to the library, but I cited it there on preventing the use of deadly force, the relationship between police agency policies and rates of officer-involved gun deaths. The findings show that one policy, the requirement that officers file a report when they point their guns at people but do not fire, is associated with significantly lower rates of gun death. I just think that the concern is that the CPOA reports need to be as comprehensive and the issues clearly identified. And I know I'm criticizing this report. I'm not criticizing the CPOA. This report is, I have 100% support of Ed and his staff. I know they're, swimming upstream. But this is critical, and there has to be a way, and I don't know how to respond, how to resort to that, other than just to point out to you all as a case review committee that this was a 12-page report, and I think it missed some of the critical elements and then confused one of them.
First of all, I want to thank you for the effort you put into this. Secondly, I want to tell you there's some information that you're missing that I think you should have. And at the board meeting, you'll likely hear those things, but this is our first chance to be together. So let me share with you what we have. We share a lot of the same concerns you do, even in the letter. Diane, was this your case?
It was.
In her letter, you see where she says, this is going to be confusing to people. If you look at the pieces that she wrote, she's saying, it's not a perceptible difference, low ready, high ready, all of that. She went through all that. We asked the same questions here in this room about the same thing, saying, how would you know, kind of thing. But beyond that, I think that there's more to it than that. And that is that we have a concern, we as a board have a concern about redefining what use of force is. So now there are some things that are called distraction strikes. There are things that would have been called use of force before, but now we have another purpose for them. It's still, in our view, they should be use of force things, at least show of force, whatever it is, the difference between those two things. So not only in this case, but generally speaking, I would say to you, we have a concern about that, which we discussed with the DOJ after the meeting with the judge last week. And Diane in particular and Paul Scotch-DePole and Ed in particular were very clear about the kinds of things they see. Now, in Diane's case and in Paul's case, they have to go by what the policy says.
Right.
So what we were concerned about is we say it was in policy, but we have a problem with it. What do we do with that concern? And we were looking for and received confirmation from the DOJ that there should be no dead ends for us. Okay, if we're not happy with what the policy is, we should, and what it says because of the investigation in a particular case or overall, we should write that should come through the policy committee. We should make a recommendation for a policy change, and we should also, and use that example, but then also give that to the Department of Justice and to the monitor. Because there can't be a dead end, and that's my concern. We've hit too many dead ends, and we're putting in way too much effort for us to not be able to get past this. It is true that the chief determines what's legit and what's not in his policy, and we will make him answer letters, and we have gotten an answer, as far as I know, from the chief that actually talks about why they decided what they decided in that particular case. But we haven't had a lot of them yet. I'm expecting that we will get them. The point is that even when we disagree, so we have issues on the big picture that says, so now to make the numbers of use of force go down, we're going to redefine what use of force is. We're going to have distraction strikes. We're going to do this. That's a policy issue, okay? And that is something we are concerned about. The Department of Justice is concerned about. The monitor is concerned about. All of us are concerned about it. And our job going away from that meeting was to document the instances where we see that, okay? And it puts them, the investigators for the CPOA, in a terrible position because they're measuring against a policy that A, is a moving target, and B, is not what it should be in the board's opinion, even in their opinion, because it's it's cumbersome for them, and that's why Diane's letter says, her report says, that this distinction is a difference without a distinction, or a distinction without a difference,
right.
Kind of low ready kind of thing. So first of all, I want to thank you. That's for starters, to go through all of this. It's really important that citizens get involved and do this, and that's what we're doing as citizens as well.
Right.
So it's really important that you, and I appreciate the time you put into this, but I want to make sure you understand that we share the same concerns, and we now have a new way of dealing with them as a result of this meeting. Should the letters, see, I'm not sure I agree that we should make the letters to the person who's making a complaint, or the letters to be as if it was evidence in court. I don't know that we should do that. We can, I think it's enough to say to the chief, we got to 65, and he says he got to whatever number he got to, and we disagree about that. As long as DOJ and the monitor get that, we can answer those questions later, but we're going to be writing position papers on every single thing that we disagree with, and I'm not sure that's smart, for us. I don't know that we have the resources for us. So I'm concerned about that. I do think it's important to put the count we put in there and say we're happy to answer any more questions as long as it doesn't dead end with the chief. Right. It goes to the monitor and to the Justice Department. So, yes, ma'am.
Well, I just wanted to make maybe a question / clarification. You have referred to this letter as the CPOA report. That's not the report. That is the letter to the citizen, which is extremely brief in comparison to the report that is sent to the chief. So some of the things that you're saying should be included in the letter are part of the investigative report. So I just want you to distinguish that, because the letter is just the letter to the citizen that you're seeing. That is not the investigative report, which is far more extensive in both its justification and in its recommendations. and things like that. The recommendations are briefly mentioned just so the citizens aware that there's that machine in place behind the scenes of sort of, but it's not, that's not the all-inclusive report. So, like I say, some of the things you're talking about that are absent from the letter, you're right, they're not in the letter, but they are in the report.
I appreciate that.
So,
I probably should have snapped to that and understood that, but from a citizen's perspective, that is the report. You know, because we don't have anything else, and I think the thing that triggered me most on this was the photograph at the end that just seemed to say we disagree. We don't know. Anyway, I agree with what you're saying. I fully understand that, and I'll read those reports with that in mind, rather than as if I'm approving a criminal investigative report that I used to.
Well, and it seems to me that it shouldn't dead end, with the civilians. Okay, and we should respond to them in terms they understand and be as clear as we can and as transparent as we can. If they want to appeal that decision, they can do that. And we'll go into more detail with them if that's what they want. But really, they're looking to an answer to the question they posed. Our investigation is not only the answers to the investigating what they posed, but what else we find. Okay, so there's more to it than that. So, I think that you're correct that and I think that we decided at the last board meeting that the discipline needs to go in. We absolutely agree with you. And I think we voted to that end. And so I think that should be in the letter. But I think we need to summarize, otherwise each one of these would be a novella, to do that. And so, and the most important thing to me is the chief isn't it. That's not the end of the road. The other end of the road is, and to me more importantly, especially if he's not going to collaborate with us, is the Department of Justice and the monitor.
I agree with you 100%, because that's what was really the driving force with me is this. So he says, he decides to ignore all the work that has been done on this, and then it just stops, because what can we do? And
and that's the exact frustration we shared with them.
But I think that so we're not going to, the Police Oversight Board is going to support these guys by saying that, hey, we're going to document that you didn't answer this, and we're going to send it on to because they need some support too. I mean, I would be very frustrated as an investigator if you guys didn't.
Well, and we had determined before that the copies of the letters that there's non-concurrence, that we would share those with the monitor specifically and with the Department of Justice. But this is more than that. This is them coming to us and saying, look at how this is. I have to find exonerated because of the way the policy is written, but there's a bigger question. Should the policy be written that way? Is that reasonable? Is it fair? Are we just taking pieces of use of force out of the equation so that they're not in the count?
I think that's what, from what I read, that was what the intent of the comment in here about the show of force, and was basically saying, hey, when they're saying acquire a target, and that's not in compliance, with the consent decree.
And that phrase in particular was brought up at our meeting with the Department of Justice. That phrase in particular, acquiring a target. What does that mean? And you can call it, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it doesn't make her Marilyn Monroe. So, just saying.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay. I never heard of that one.
Okay, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Although thanks, Jim. I really appreciate what you guys are saying here about policies and procedures and all that kind of thing, but I think actions speak a little more than words. And that is that the Policy Review Subcommittee hasn't met more than twice in the last 8 months. And so I'm curious as why that's going on. Now, as far as what's in the letters and all those kinds of things, I think it would be great to inform the complainant that this is a summary, and that if they want to get their hands on the entire investigation, that that's available to them, and they can either call you guys or file a NIPA request on it or whatever, okay? Because a lot of people don't even know about this kind of thing. I mean, I talk to people all the time and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So there's that. Then the other thing is, as far as my understanding is that you all, as the board members, aren't getting access to the disciplinary, the previous discipline on officers.
Ed does.
Ed does, but you don't. And I don't quite understand that. I don't know if you ask for it, if you get access to it or not. But, I mean, what was it, yesterday? Or I believe it was yesterday. The Albuquerque Journal came out with a story concerning this recent car accident with the officer where the 6-year-old boy was killed. And they apparently got extensive access to the officer's former disciplinary records as far as auto accidents that he had in the past. So if the media can get access to this information, I don't understand why you can't.
Well, actually, what we get, and this is what it looks like. So this is the form, and I printed it out for one of the letters that one of the cases we're going to review today. But Ed reviews it, and then he gives us a summary of what it is. So for example, he's saying that in this particular case, this person should get a written reprimand and 40 hours of suspension. In this explanation, he says how many times they've been, and he gives us a summary of it, not all the detail. Okay, but so he has seen it, and he summarizes it to us to justify his recommendation to us for a recommendation to the chief. Okay. So that's how that works. Okay. And so I'm not sure that I need to read every single thing about this, but I do want to know, is this somebody who's problematic? Right. So, for example, in the case that you're talking about with the officer with 5 previous things, what I don't know yet, I mean, first of all, I haven't seen them, so I don't know anything about what those things are except what was in the paper. Right. But my question would be, after hearing that in the paper, was there any retraining, for example? Is there a policy? That leads me to a policy question that says, how many times does it take? You know, for those kinds of things. So that's what I'm saying, is that we're here to look at individual cases, but we're also here to look at the big picture and to say, what is it that what suggestions can we make that might make this more credible to and transparent to the people in the public, just like it would be to us.
And this gets back to my point about the Policy and Procedures Review Subcommittee not meeting, because it was in your March at your
I don't know the reason for that, but we're going to find out.
At your full meeting in March, that's when a lot of this stuff kind of came out, that they had 66 auto accidents just for that month, and here we are, well, 2 months later, and we still haven't seen that subcommittee.
But at that meeting, actually, I'm not sure if it was March or April, but I talked to Natalie, what's her last name? Who's their statistics person, and she asked me to clarify what exactly was I looking for, and then I talked to Lieutenant Garcia. So the report we'll receive in June, which you read about in the paper, is really, and it's been written about a couple of different ways, but we did ask for a report. They just asked for an extension so that it could be June instead of May, and we gave it to them. But what we asked for is, what's the data? Because 66 by itself doesn't tell us anything. Right. Okay.
That was 66 over a 3-month period. It wasn't just for that.
I think you're wrong.
For that month.
For that month.
That's correct.
And so,
and then I saw in the paper that for all of last year, they had somewhere around 300. And so
we've been asking about this since for 8 months. Yeah. Okay, so he and Dr. Ring have been asking about this for 8 months, and we've asked for more. Like, is it a preventable accident? Is it not?
Once again, this goes back. I mean, you guys have been talking about this for 8 months internally, apparently.
No, at the board meeting.
No, this is at the board meeting.
Okay, but where's your policy and procedures meetings? You've had 2 of them in the last 8 months.
I don't think those two tie together.
Well,
I believe
yes.
that that's a policy and procedure issue.
You're right, we need to check on that and see what's going on with that. But I want to make sure you're clear about this report in June. What we asked them for is a comparison to cities of like size. That's the first step. Second question.
Now, you're talking about June of last year?
No, June of this coming year. The report that we'll get in June of this year will compare Albuquerque Police Department accidents as to the type of accident and how it compares to cities of like size. Now it's an apples to apples comparison, relatively speaking. But my point is, that's not the end of the question. That's not the end of the curiosities we have about this. Because if you look back in our reports, we asked, when officers get in trouble, how does the police department track that? Okay, and we asked Major Tyler that question. And said, and they said, the EIS system is not a disciplinary system, and, all of that stuff they talked about. But if that's not it, what is it? Okay? So what is it that they use to track people that are in need of extra training, discipline, or need to be exited from the police department? How do they do that? And this driving thing is only one of those questions. So the next set of questions that come after this report have to do with, because we don't know, we look at 66, I have no way of knowing that 5 of those aren't the same officer. Right. I have no way of knowing that 3 months ago, 4 of those officers were in accidents before that. Okay, so that's the kind of, we don't have access to their individual files, but we can ask for reports that are by individual. So how many police officers are involved in car accidents? Is it 66? Is it 5 that are always in accidents? Is it 10? Is it 100? I don't know the answer. We have to find the answer, because that tells us what we need to create policy recommendations moving forward. So all I'm saying is we are on the trail of all of that, and we're trying very hard to get that information.
So that question wasn't put into your request that you're looking at right now?
No, I asked for the comparison first. Okay, I did ask Major Tyler at the board meeting.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
How do you do this?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that we are looking at how do they track overall officers that get in trouble, get sideways with the rules. How do they do that? And though they may never give us the names, I'm still going to ask for how many have how many. Okay, that's always going to be a question, because we need to know that.
Right. Well, and I think the other question is how does the department's policy compare to other departments' policy?
Well, that's a very good question.
What are the best practices?
Right.
So.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is I appreciate what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and we share a lot of the same concerns.
Okay. Now, there's one other point I'd like to make here, and I'm glad that you're getting a summary from Ed as far as what the previous disciplinary record was and how that fits into his recommendations as to discipline for whatever this new thing is. But I also want to talk about the Garrity statements that officers give. If you look around the country, and maybe you could reach out to some of the other civilian police oversight agencies, whatever they call them around the country, I think you'll find that they have access to that information. And perhaps I know you guys are still talking about amendments to the ordinance. Perhaps you need to take a harder look at that. We can look
at Garrity's statements. We can as a board.
Yes, you can. But I believe the ordinance is pretty tight on that as far as what you guys say out in public about those statements. Okay? And I believe that is completely wrong, because you guys aren't looking at criminal aspects. You're looking at civil aspects, administrative aspects.
We're looking at everything.
Well, I understand that.
But we're not acting on the criminal part.
That's right.
Because we're not supposed to.
And if you look around the country, you will find that Garrity statements are not exempt to public discussion when you're talking about civil or administrative actions. Okay,
well,
they only apply to criminal actions. And once again, I've told you guys this before, that here in Albuquerque and here in the state of New Mexico at the state level, Garrity statements are discussed all the time in public.
Well, we have asked that question, Charles, I will tell you that. And our council, as I recall, said that we don't have the ability to do that, that's part of the deal. So I don't know that it's true, but we'll check.
And that's what I'm talking about as far as amending the ordinance is concerned. Because I believe the ordinance has stipulations in there that kind of make it a little tough for you guys. And I think that needs to be taken a hard look.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll answer your question about why the board doesn't have access to the disciplinary history. Because the board cannot know who the officer is that's coming before them. So
you'd have to redact it.
So
what if they did
the powers?
Give them a chance.
The powers of the recommendation or discipline are solely that of the executive director. It's not for the board. And so for the distinction that you're making with the media is that is a settled issue and has worked its way through the entire disciplinary process and is a final disposition when the media gets it, as opposed to making a recommendation for discipline when that is a pending matter.
Well, what I'm getting at is they should be able to have access to those records also. The things that were finalized, if they want. You know, I mean, I'm glad that they're giving them service.
They can't know the identity of the officer.
Because
of the collective bargaining agreement 1. So
yeah.
They can't know the identity of the officer.
Okay.
So that's why it's Officer O, Officer Q, Officer Z, whatever. So that they're making a judgment based upon.
we don't want to be biased either.
Sure, I get that. So I know the collective bargaining agreement is in process right now for their new contract, which will be coming up. Do you guys have any input into that? Do you have a person that's able to sit in on those bargaining talks?
No.
We're not a party.
No, but we
You're
have
not
pointed
a
out
party.
some of the problems with the existing contract,
Right.
and how it hamstrings this process.
Right.
So we have talked about that.
It seems, and I've been involved with this for quite some time also, and it seems that the last time the contract was rewritten, it kind of flew in the face of what was already in the ordinance.
Well,
So,
Charles,
anyway.
we need to get on to the meeting,
Sure,
so.
absolutely.
Okay.
You betcha. Thanks.
All right. That ends the public comments. CPOA report. Ed, you have anything for us today?
Well, you know, I was in Nashville for the International Association of Chiefs of Police Legal Officers training, and a couple of things that stood out. One is I think we need to review the Force Review Board policy and include the review of all APD accidental discharges. That's a standard protocol for all the other Force Review Boards that take place, San Diego, Seattle.
Do they include that in use of force if it's an accidental discharge?
They include it in the Force Review Board review.
Okay.
Given what was discovered for, as I pointed out to Judge Brack, the verbal reprimand for the officer that fired his weapon through a kitchen window into his neighbor's house. And that, so that shows me that those accidental discharges need to be brought to light and they need to be examined by more than just a sergeant coming out and making a decision. I had a conversation with the city attorney yesterday about the Force Review Board as well, in that, as it's currently constructed, they are violating their own Force Review Board policy, because every voting member is supposed to submit their own critique, and right now it's all been condensed into one page that is filled out by the, at this point, Deputy Chief Huntsman fills out the criteria sheet. So I pointed that out to the City Attorney's Office, and they said that they will take a look at that and get it worked out. The Force Review Board for tomorrow has been moved to Friday, and so I'm going to be designating Paul to go to that because I'm going to be out of town on Friday. Other than that, I'm still waiting to appeal the decision by HR for the data analyst. And so I'm waiting to get that meeting. And we had the Tactical Force Review Board last week. Once again, no shots fired by SWAT of 7 activations, I believe. So I'll summarize those for the board. And that's about it. We're starting to get inundated with these traffic complaints now.
That is the 311 sticker.
Mm-hmm.
People calling, the police cars have a sticker on them that says, if you don't like how I'm driving, basically, call 311, and all of those complaints are coming to us.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's that.
Are you going to have to staff?
And I don't think we were included in that conversation, were we?
No, we were not included in that conversation. Simply the chief put out a memo saying that all driving traffic complaints are supposed to come to us, and not sure how he feels like he can obligate us to do anything, but that memo's out. We have to, my view is, we have to probably establish a new position. We have to have somebody that does intake of complaints, and that's just their.
How did the police department deal with those before?
They would go through different. They would go through different processes. So risk management would handle some of them if they came in through 311. If because we still get direct driving complaints through the website or phone calls, anonymous phone calls or forms, so.
I'm not okay with them deciding for us. That's another dead end.
It is an issue that we will have to discuss and resolve. But I think we really do need a full-time intake, new staff person to triage all of the complaints as they come in.
Can you make that part of your the meeting on Thursday?
I'm not going to be there. Carlotta's going to be there. She can do it. I'm going to be in Florida.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I got to go. That family thing I got to go to.
I mean,
just for discussion.
It'll be part of. I can bring it up as part of my report, and we can have the discussion.
Yeah, just for discussion and maybe opinions.
And then everybody's aware that we're being sued.
Yeah. And no one's been served yet?
Nobody's been served yet.
The other thing is, I am aware that I think the Tactical Review Board, them not shooting anyone is a plus. I think that's very positive because normally, or years past, when they went out, somebody died. And I think.
No, I think that, and then the monitor says so, and that is one of the highlights. But they have, and they go through the matrix every time. Here's the matrix. All right, we've got the score, and it involves arrest warrants. All right, how are we gonna tactically? Do we have information where they are? We set this up. They do it for arrests. Then they do it for barricaded subjects. They do it for those types of situations, and they use the matrix every time. And the matrix is attached with every case, and it is absolutely a highlight of what is going well with the department. But they're also very good about closing the loop on everything that comes before the Force Review Board. If there's any problems with tactics or equipment or policy or anything else, and they act on it right away, and they incorporate it right away.
On the tactical review board.
Side, yes.
But not on the Force Review Board.
Well, the Force Review Board, there's the Tactical Force Review Board, and then there's CERT Force Review Board, and then there's the Use of Force Review Board, which is randomly selected cases of just use of force not rising to the level of serious. So there's 3 Force Review Boards that are taking place concurrently. So last week was Tactical, Friday is CERT, Serious Use of Force.
If I could just say one thing, I was going to the Civilian Police Academy, but I dropped out of it. The SWAT guys that presented were extremely professional. They never once complained about the DOJ, the settlement agreement. They did it. They said exactly what you were saying, Ed, is that they use their matrix, they follow it. They were the one group that didn't go up there and say DOJ is a 4-letter word, and just completely denigrate the rest of the process. But those guys were extremely professional. And I went up and talked to them afterwards, and they said there's a lot of reasons that we are not having these shootings. And they said that one of them is we follow that matrix, which goes back to this case where that sergeant just put an asterisk in there. He didn't even do anything on the thing. Anyway,
And that's the
I think that's wonderful that they're doing so well. The problem is, to me, the public looks at that and says, well, they're not shooting everybody, so everything's fixed.
Yeah, no. But we're using distraction techniques, and we're, whatever.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the case reviews.
I make a motion that we the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cases for administratively closed, that we accept them as they are.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
I agree with you. Let's do cases investigated.
I make a motion that we accept them as they are. I have one question about one of them, and I think it's really about writing it. Okay.
Go ahead. If you're
So the one I have a question about is 00117. There are 2 officers involved. There's a woman who was stopped for drinking and driving, and she had a minor accident. One of the officers, in this case, one of the officers decided to mark she had not consumed any alcohol, even though she had said she had, which was interesting. And then the other one said, to the witnesses, or the person in the other car, she has open containers in her car, and she's going to get charged with that. So in both cases, if I understand the letter right, in both cases the officer has the discretion to say yes, and of course we found it sustained for the one who said she did not consume alcohol and she admitted to it. So there's that. But the other one, it says the officer was exonerated, and he's exonerated, I think, because he has the discretion to say what he said. Because it is a discretion thing, but the other officer was the lead guy. Right. So what confused me is, and the only thing that clarified it for me was this report. Officer K is the one that was sustained. Officer C was exonerated. In the letter, it's not clear that the sustained had to do with one officer and the exonerated had to do with the other. So the way it was written, it made me confused. And so I'm just looking for clarification. I agree with the outcome. But
I think the letter deals with Officer C first.
Yes.
So those are all of those findings that are for Officer C, and then the other findings are for Officer K.
All I'm saying is it's not clear the way it's written. That and it even says they have the discretion. So this one's sustained. Okay, it does say it. It says Officer K. Okay, my bad. I was confused when I read it.
In this case, it wasn't necessarily. In this case, Officer C was the first one on the scene,
Right.
and he's the one that's interacting with the subject in this case. Officer K is there subsequently, and he is the one that discovers the open containers and then points them out to the officer. But it's Officer C who's doing the investigation, and the discretion is beyond whether or not to write the citation for the open containers. The discretion is that when you view the video, she does not pass the field sobriety test, and that even though she's on a white line, she can't walk the white line, and that there should have been an arrest for a DWI, even though there was a breathalyzer which she passed at some level. She clearly is impaired. So that is the discretion that was too far in our opinion, that there should have been an arrest, and she should not have been allowed to leave that scene without a citation, and the accident report reflecting that the officer couldn't determine the fault of the accident when it should have been fairly clear who caused the accident.
Well, I agree with the outcome and the recommendations, so I make a motion that all the cases investigated be accepted as they're written.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Those are old cases too.
The 3 16s and the 17.
Yeah.
17 was the
I think
first one that came in.
17 was reported
It was
in January or something.
It happened, it
happened
came
in
to
June.
us, but the actual incident happened in June.
Right. Okay.
There was a news report on it in November, but we didn't get, the citizen didn't come to us until January.
Right, so January, so.
Right.
And same with 179-16, that's all. Okay. Alrighty.
On the cert cases, I just wanted to call out, which one was it? Oh, on the cases investigated, I really like that letter in particular makes policy and training recommendations. And I really liked seeing that. That was great. Based on the conversation that we had at the last board meeting, I really liked that was the case.
Oh, was that involving the crime scene investigation and the call out?
It was, I don't have it.
It was determined,
yes,
okay, I know, okay.
It's case number 17916.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then the cert cases, I agreed with all of the outcomes of all of those, and including the K9 one. I thought that my recommendation is to approve them as they're written. Does anybody have any others?
Carla, did you have any?
I don't.
Those are scheduled to be in front of the Force Review Board on the 24th of May.
Okay.
So you have our approval to go ahead with that, or do you feel differently about any of those?
I have to go back and look at.
I can remind you. The first one, 05016, was an armed, inebriated man at Dirty Bourbon.
Okay, right.
That was the one.
Now, my question in that case was, I think that the officer should have put him in a squad sooner, so that there was less potential for him to continue to struggle.
Right.
So that, other than that, I didn't have any concerns with that one.
Yeah, outcome-wise, I thought it was fine. C05216 is the one where there was 2 different cars that were stolen, and there were guys running around town. They had robbed somebody. They had stolen 2 cars. They had guns in the car, and once the police stopped them, one of them resisted and was brought to the ground. And I didn't have any problems with what they had done. C00717 was a woman who was a thief at Walmart, and she bit the officer like 3 times, and he finally brought her to the ground, and then kept her on the ground until the other officer came, and I didn't have any problems with that either. So my motion, the canine one, was the robbery at a vapor store on Central.
Oh, right.
And
then the canine apprehension.
Right, the
He
canine
tries to
went in.
hide under a blanket.
I think that, the dog obviously, they yelled the warnings, they did all that stuff, and the guy obviously had some mental health issues. Either that or he was just really stoned, but I think there may be a mix of mental health issues in there, and I thought everything I read about how he was interviewed and how he was handled, I thought was appropriate. And
I don't know, he was pretty, there was a lot of intent there, he brought a bat to break the window open to get in there, and so there was a lot of intent behind that crime.
but in terms of the use of force,
Well, I mean, his judgment of thinking that he's going to be able to hide from the dog under a blanket, I mean, that's just poor judgment. I'm not sure that that's mental illness.
no, but just in listening, I mean, he was really talking crazy in his conversation with the officer at the scene, and then later when he was interviewed. His touch with reality
he did
was
have some
solid.
strange ideation the way he and his train of thought
He
was
talked to
very
the owner
interesting.
as he was robbing the store. He talked to him on the phone. And told him, they just needed to get along, and not just,
Can't we all just get along?
can't we all just get along? Anyway, I agree. My motion is that we accept all the cert cases as they were written.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. There was no appeals. Those were all the old ones. Right?
No appeals.
Okay.
And there was are we going to do the LIS case? Or are we going to do that at the board meeting?
I thought we, yeah.
Okay. All right.
There was one, okay, let's close this out, because I had a question on a rewrite. Oh, we can ask that question on 189-16. I think we recommended, if you look at the minutes, we recommended that we rewrite that one.
Is that the one where the assessment was?
Joanne's suggestion.
Can't remind me.
We clarified that the assessment of the person being impaired was that of the detective and not of our
Yes,
investigators.
I thought we did that already.
We did that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did that.
So we did rewrite that one.
Yes, that went out, and that clarification was in her letter to her, informing her of the appeal.
Good catch, though. Nice way to follow up.
Okay. Any other business?
Yes.
For me.
I'd like to make a comment here if I could. I don't know if you all saw I believe it was in the Journal concerning a former officer who is now doing IT work on videos, and he reported that I believe he was hired by the Hogg family.
I saw that article.
To take a look at the videos of that incident, and how he has discovered that those videos were probably tampered with. So I guess my question is that, are you all aware of that? And apparently the only way that you can discover if those things have been tampered with is if you have the metadata to the videos. And I don't know if Mr. Harness is being given that type of information when he looks at the videos, or even when you guys access evidence.
I think we said at our board meeting that we're going to count on what the Department of Justice tells us, because we believe that the that they are doing this investigation.
So you're still waiting on that?
Yes, we are. And I think that, we can look at all of that stuff. We need to be experts, and none of us are.
Right.
So to me, there is one authority in this that's reliable, and that's the FBI.
Right.
So I'm going to wait until that happens. I was very interested in that article right now, and it was also clarifying, I thought, in that article that the review that was done before, that the city said had been done, was really clarified that they were talking about existing policy now,
Right.
not previous policy.
Right. Right.
So as much as they make it sound like, we were cleared, the city was cleared, that nothing was messed with, in their report, what's the name of that company that did that report?
Elijah.
Yes, but what they reviewed was not what we're talking about. It's not talking about what was the policy then,
Right.
at the time, and that's what this person in their article talked about.
Right.
And so I'm real curious, because that's exactly what we thought was going to be ineffective about the Elijah.
There's conflicting expert testimony regarding the video and whether or not they were tampered with. The Hawks family's expert says yes, the city's expert says no. So there's conflicting.
Right.
There's conflicting information, and I'm not talking about the Elijah report. I'm talking about the report that was done by Grant Fredericks. So
Right.
there's ultimately it's going to come down to a battle of the experts and which one appears to be more credible. I thought the most important part of the article was that after Mr. Chavez had been deposed in March, that confirmed that the review that we requested by the DOJ was taking place because the U.S. attorneys had interviewed him based upon our referral in November. So,
Okay. Well, speaking to credibility on those reports, I have it from a very, very high source, let's put it that way, that in the original investigation, Taser refused to let anyone look at what they were, look at the situation unless they were somebody that they had worked with before, and that was Elijah. And so I just wanted to throw that out to you guys if you didn't know that or not. But I think that
we are
a credibility issue.
The agency is well aware of issues moving forward with video, so we're sending 2 of our investigators to video analysis training. So we're going to be looking at those things, and we're going to have the skills to do that. But we have to go to the training and get the investigators on board for that.
And then there's another, I believe last night at the city council meeting, they voted for a position for the IG's office for somebody who's more of a bit of an IT expert, because they're concerned with all the cyber attack things that are going on. And so there might be a resource there for you guys too.
Yeah, we're going to get much more closely aligned with the data people at the police department, because there's data we need, and we don't have it yet.
Yeah.
And we're going to get it. So just trust me on that.
Okay, let's close this out.
I make a motion that we adjourn. So
Let's see.
next meeting is
June 6th, is that okay with you? Excuse me.
yes.
Is it Tuesday? 10 o'clock? Yeah.
June 6th?
Okay.
The only day I can't. You know what? It's today. We've got a bunch of
I have
Yeah,
Gotta get what?
my boarding pass.
Oh.
I have OPA on Tuesday right now at 9 a.m.
How about that Monday or Wednesday?
I can't do Monday. I can do the afternoon on Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
How about?
But I got a baby to take care of.
What
It's
day?
too adorable to say no to.
Good time.
Not my
What
baby,
day?
my son's baby.
Sorry, which day?
That week.
Well, Wednesday I have Force Review Board. Thursday, PPRB on the 8th.
MPOB.
MPOB. So,
What about
afternoon
the-
on Monday.
Prior week.
Afternoon on Monday.
Can you do afternoon on Monday?
Oh, yeah.
I can do that. After 2?
After, yeah.
What date is that? Is that the 5th?
What time?
Afternoon on Monday would be good.
2? At 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
My second.
All in favor?
Yes.